Hello, everyone. This is the Paint the Town Red podcast, and I'm your host, Chance Bowen. And today we have a very special guest who is a veteran. And on this podcast, we love veterans. It is Nick Lind. Nick has an Instagram page by the name of, what was it? The Nick the Veteran, right?
That's right, Nick the Veteran.
Nick the Veteran. So Nick's going to tell us a little bit about himself, and this is our first conversation, as well as I guess my whole, all the people that follow my podcast know you first for the first time, as well as me knowing you. So Nick, what do you got going on right now?
Okay, so a little bit about myself. I was born in Newburyport, Massachusetts. My parents got divorced at a young age. I ended up moving to Louisiana when I was about 12 years old. I joined the United States Air Force when I was 19. I actually went in there as a guaranteed x-ray technician, so I worked in the medical field. I did that from 2010 to 2016. I had 1 6-month deployment to Afghanistan. I was in Bagram Air Base, and so I supported our troops over there. We were first responders. We dealt with a lot of trauma, people with blown off limbs, the whole 9 yards, crazy stuff. And so after that, 2016 came around, they tried to get me to, redo my contract, of course. And I said, nah, I think I'm good. I'm out. So I traveled the world a little bit after that. I lived in Portland, Oregon. I lived in Washington. I lived in New York. Came back to the South to be near my family. And yeah, I'm actually 100% disabled veteran. So I'm kind of just living my life day by day and trying to figure out things. But I decided recently to get into the political sphere. There's a lot of problems going on in our country right now. I'm very vocal about the violence that's happening in the Black community, which gets me a lot of hate. But, it's something that I think we need to talk about. And also just our politics in general. There's a lot of like Israel first politicians who have dual citizenship, and they worry more about Israel than they do about Americans. And it's a huge problem in our country. And I want to be vocal about it. So that's where I'm at right now.
All right, that sounds like a pretty great plan. So what made you want to get specifically into the Black community's crime?
Well, funny little story, not really funny at all, but about a couple years ago, my sister was driving on the highway, and this is in Louisiana. She was on the highway. I guess she was coming home from work, and there was a group of individuals in their car. They were Black. I'm guessing they were pretty young, 18 to 25, and they pulled out a gun and they shot at my sister in her car. She
My
didn't,
God.
yeah, she didn't provoke them. She didn't do anything to them. They simply, I guess, were just trying to scare her, or I don't know if it was gang affiliated or what the deal
Wow.
was. So she came home frightened. She had a bullet hole in her car. Thankfully, it didn't hit her. And from that day forward, I was like, what is going on? I was brought up to love everyone, to be honest with you. I want to get that out of the way is I don't hate Black people. What I hate is this thug ghetto culture that has infested America and especially the Black community. And by no means, it's not only Blacks. There's a lot of white people out there who have also been infested by this culture. And it's something that, because of this incident that I'm very passionate about and I want to put a stop to it. And so that's kind of what led me down that path. And obviously getting into politics, learning history, going to school, they don't really teach you the right history. A lot of it is kind of made up or kind of twisted in a way to make you think a certain way. So as I got older, I got more curious about it. I'm actually a Christian, but I'm a new Christian. I became a Christian this year by the grace of God. I read the Bible for the first time. I gave my life to Jesus. I was an atheist before that. So, I changed my life around and it was really eye opening to me. And ever since that moment, I've kind of had this eye opening moment where I wanted to just like learn about everything, learn what's going on in America, learn what's going on around the world. And that's kind of put me in this position. So that's where I'm at. And I have a lot of conversations with people. I'm very vocal. I am not best Christian. I'll be honest with you. I say curse words. I say slurs sometimes. I'm trying to get better at it, but I'm upset. I'm upset that my people are dying. It's a known fact that whites are 12 times more likely to die by a African American. And a lot of African Americans, they do not want to accept this fact. And I get into conversations with them all the time. But it's just a fact that if you're in a majority Black neighborhood, it's more likely if you're white to die by a African American. And so there's this rhetoric, I think, that's being pushed, especially on media, that white people are bad, white people are evil, white people are out to get the Black man. And I have Black people in my family. My uncle on my father's side, he has Black children. So they're like my first cousins. And So I don't have anything against black people generally. I know black people who are very smart, they're educated, intelligent. One of my good friends online that I just recently made, Andre, he has an Instagram, he's blowing up right now. He's very vocal about the black community. But it's just one of those things where it's just like, at what point do we stop being silent about the obvious and we all wake up and say, "Hey, let's stop, let's think about this. What is going on and why is it happening?" And
Yeah,
that's
but Nick, God said that, everybody's saved who goes through Christ and like,
yeah.
you can't judge a whole group of people based on the actions of a few, am I right?
Well, you are right. You are right to an extent. But when there's a majority of this certain race that's actually committing these crimes, I think, you know what I really think? I think there's a lot of people that take advantage of Christians' altruism. You know what I mean? They think that because we're nice people, that we've given ourselves to Jesus and that we want love and unity for the world, that we simply won't stand up and fight against violence. And that's complete bullshit, man. There's a lot of us who are ready to go to war over these
But
crazy.
Nick, wouldn't you say that like, I mean, the differences that are between the races, they're just skin deep. Wouldn't you
No,
think that?
I mean,
You think
maybe,
they're, you think
maybe.
they're more than just skin?
I think so. I think we have different cultures. And if you go back to history and you just look at what happened, we took these people from sub-Saharan Africa, okay? They had not even
Mhm.
invented the wheel yet. We brought them over to America. Of course, we enslaved them. Obviously, that was bad. After we enslaved them, what happened? We decided to free them. 1,000 white men died to free these slaves. They were free. And then we decided, okay, well, we're going to desegregate them. We're going to put them into our schools. We're going to put them next to our family. And we didn't even get to vote on that. That was forced upon us. And so they forced this upon us. And now you have a bunch of people who have a different culture. They're completely different, just way of thinking. And we're living with these people. And there's this pure hatred that a lot of them had for us. And a lot of us don't have a lot of hatred for them. And so it's just this mixture of craziness, chaotic craziness that we're dealing with. And I don't know, man. I don't
Yeah.
like what I'm seeing right now. You have the girl who got stabbed on the bus, Ariana. I mean, it was just a brutal stabbing. This guy had been to jail how many times? And they let him out of jail, this crazy motherfucker. And these black judges are doing this too, is these Democratic black judges. Carmelo Anthony, look at this guy. He stabbed a white kid in the chest who was unarmed. They raise $1 million for him on GoFundMe. The judge turns his bail down from 1 million to 250,000. He's still not in jail, and he's going to college now. What is going on?
Yeah, but Nick, if we didn't enslave them in the past and they didn't have systemic racism, then, that's what's led these people to be this way. It has nothing to do with, their past or anything like that, or that they come from sub Saharan Africa. It's actually our fault that they did those crimes.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what they're pushing, isn't it? That, they're these victims. The system is working against them. And there's nothing they can do to better their lives because the white man is keeping them down. It's just after a while, white people get sick of hearing the same damn thing.
And as a Christian, I mean, we know they've been in our nation for hundreds of years at this point and still haven't assimilated, but we're Christians and we can't admit that there's any type of differences between the racial groups, besides, of course, the obvious glaring one that their skin color is different. And so, we have to let them all into our nation. That's what we have to do to help them. I mean, we can't go and, do what we're doing with Israel right now, declare Israel an ethnically pure Jewish state and help them out, pay for their kids to go to college and have health care and everything else, and then defend them against all the Middle Eastern countries around them. We can't do that with like the Congo, right? So we have to instead, or Mexico, we have to instead let them come into our backyard and
Right.
sleep with our wives and our daughters. That's what we got to do. That's the Christian way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what they want you to think, isn't it? And the real problem, too, is we have all these immigrants coming into our country. And look, I don't agree with everything Trump has done. And I like that he has ICE taking them out and he's deporting them. But why is it that when a white country decides, hey, we don't want to be the minority in our own country that we built, why is it suddenly racist? But every other country, all these other Muslim countries, that decide that, hey, they're majority Muslim and they don't want white people in their country, it's okay for them to do it. But as soon as the white people start saying, hey, we don't want this in our country, we don't want your third world culture in our country, it's suddenly wrong. Why is that?
Or Japan, or you say, you'll say, "Well, China and India," and they say, "Oh, no one wants to go to China and India." And then you go, "Well, that sounds kinda racist," because I'm sure there are some whites that would like to go there, but what about Japan? Japan is beautiful and nice, but they don't let a bunch of immigrants come into their country. Why not? Why do every single country, literally in the entire world, is made up of their language, their geography, their culture, and their bloodline, the people that inhabit the place. If you ship a bunch of Indians and you kick all the Americans out of America and you put Indians in America, it's still not going to be America, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And this is such a weird thing that the older generations have been, and even people in our generation too. I mean, this is pretty much universally taught as being immoral to have a racial stance of any kind, by the way. And this saddens me because you have a situation in our nation right now where people are trying to say, "Oh, well, no, it's the Christian values that we need to instill," or, "Oh, no, it's that we need to have more homogeneity with our culture," right? And then I sit back and I go, yeah, but there's Christians in the Congo, but, like, if they came here, they're still gonna commit a lot of crimes just like the Africans here do today. Like, could it be, and this may sound like racist, but I don't really care anymore because I'm tired of arguing with people that are just they wanna say, "You should trust the science," but then when you bring up a certain type of science, they don't wanna hear it. Like, it is a fact, okay? There are differences between the racial groups. And you say, well, no, no, we're all the same race. Okay, fine. Use the word ethnicity then. Whatever word you want to use it as, you use the word breed like they do in dogs, right? A Chihuahua and a
Right.
German Shepherd can breed with each other, but guess what? They have
Exactly.
different traits, okay? I mean, it's not that hard to really grasp. You're trying to not grasp it because you think you're attaching being non-racist to being moral. It's actually a very immoral thing to rip people out of their nation, bring them to our nation where we're predominantly white cultured, and try to get them to exist alongside us. They get bullied, they get everything else, and it happens like that in every society. That's wrong. That's immoral. Not saying, hey, this is our nation, and yeah, we don't want to be minorities in our own nation. Yeah, the grandkids of the founding fathers should probably be the ones to inherit our nation, not some random Jeets from frickin' India, right? But our
Absolutely.
politicians have convinced everyone that it's immoral to think that way. And the reason they've done it is because there's a financial incentive to do it. I mean, I've said this a million times. Everyone's said it a million times. We know why they're doing it. They don't want their stock prices to go down, so they hire a bunch of people from other nations who will work for cheaper, and pretty much they can do away with the white Americans because, well, the people running our nation today happen to be of a ancient minority in Europe, and they want our nation to be more accepting of other groups of people. No, that's conspiracy. That's conspiracy. No, it's a fact. You can look and see the group of people that are largely pushing this multicultural narrative are the Jewish people. Not only are they
Absolutely.
Jewish, but the Kellergy plan, which was backed largely in part by the Rothschilds, who own all the banking systems and the financial systems, are the ones who turned the coin. Or sorry, he didn't turn the coin. He's the one who laid out their plan to pretty much flood the European nations with a bunch of Negroids, is what he classified them as, to make a mixed race of people. So they're easily manipulated and controlled. Now, at the exact same time, saying that Jewish people are superior, right? So it's okay to say superior. He's the father of the United Nations, by the way. It's okay to say superior if you're talking about the Jews, the blacks, the browns, but if you say whites, then you're in big, big trouble. And then they have the melting pot thing too. So I started looking into this today, actually, and it turns out that actually, for the majority of our nation's history, to become a citizen, you had to be a white male of good character, all the way up to 1965. So not just the majority, like the overwhelming majority of our nation has been this way. And in the 1965, we changed it. Then you could become a citizen if you weren't white, of course, before that. But no, we didn't allow anybody else to come in. Our borders were like gates that we had locked all the time. And the only people that were allowed in were people from European nations, right? So blacks were being able to become citizens at that point after the Civil War, of course. But everybody else, they weren't allowed in. We didn't allow no more Africans, no Indians, only white people to come in, okay? So the population of white people went up. Population of black people was going down, or at least just stagnating. Then in 1965, we changed it to make it to where, oh no, actually every country will have an equal amount of 20,000 visas for each country, each nation. And the countries that used them were predominantly countries that were not white, like Asian nations, India, Mexico, Latin American countries. Now they come into our country and they are overwhelmingly the majority of the immigration policy, whereas the Europeans don't even, they hardly even come here because their own population in their home is also dying off too because they're facing the same problems because they have the same owners, right? And everyone talks like this is some grand conspiracy, but it's really not. And it's in our face every single day. They demoralize us 24/7. They despise us. They want to kill us. And older generations just won't wake up to that. I spent all day today actually talking to one. That's why I'm kind of pinned up right now. But it's like, man, you could talk to him all day long. And then as soon as you bring up something, they go, oh my God, these conspiracies. It's like,
Right.
wait, hold on.
Yeah.
I just told you that the majority of the porn industry is owned by Jews. You said, oh God, here we go, conspiracies. Wait,
Yeah.
but that's a simple thing to find out if that's true.
Pornhub, Jew. OnlyFans, Jew. It's like
You
it
can
goes on
find
and
it
on.
out. Yeah, Grinder, Jew, I mean, all of them. And you go, wait, you can find this out right now. It can be a fact you can look up. And then you can't just say,
Just look
oh,
it up.
conspiracy. Look it up right now. You can see it. But it's like they won't because then when they do, then they go, oh, well, it turns out that, yeah, well, Jewish people, they're into that stuff. Well, oh, well, I mean, who cares? There's some people that are into
Yeah.
this and some people that, okay, they're into not just that. They also own the financial system and they also own the media. And then the media makes us feel like war's okay and we got to bomb all these Indians, we got to bomb all these people in order to save our nation and save our people, right? We're protecting the world is what we're doing. And they run this through our media, through Fox News and through CNN. And then we're in war in Ukraine or we're war in Israel. And then guess who owns all of the companies that get all of the money to fight the war? They're also owned by Jews. And then they
Hmm.
go, oh my God, it's a big old loop of conspiracy. Look it up. BlackRock owns these companies. I mean, this is 100% fact. Larry Fink is a Jew who owns the whole entire nation. Larry Fink's company is big. It's the biggest financial institution in the entire world by far, even surpassing the Chinese bank. How can you say that's a conspiracy? It's a fact right in your face. And they watch Fox News all day long. And then they say, you kids nowadays are getting brainwashed from all that social media. But no, BlackRock owns Facebook. You know who BlackRock doesn't own? All the independent news sources and all the independent journalists that I follow on my Instagram. And I get a
That's
bunch
right.
of news from all over the place. And I don't just do what fits my narrative. I take in the facts and I go, this sounds like this is happening. There's some type of psyop going on with our nation and our people that's weakening us. And we're not able to defend our nation. And the people that wake up to it right away are the fathers, the men like yourself, masculine men who are going, hey, I don't just do what everybody says to do. I'm not just going to flow with the river. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stand my ground if I think something's wrong. And that's what we need today because there's a bunch of people that are just trying to make money and be politically involved for financial gain, not because they actually love the nation. I did my ancestry recently. My family, in a clear line, goes all the way back to the Revolutionary War, even before the Revolutionary War. Actually, the Thomas Mitten is my real name's actually Mitten, my last name. He was he was second generation. So his father was here, and then his son, Thomas Mitten, he fought in the Revolutionary War. He was captured, and then he got out, and we ended up winning the Revolutionary War, of course. And from then on, we went from North Carolina to Georgia to Arkansas to now where I live now in California. And that is something that you can't throw that in the garbage, right? You can't throw that inheritance in the garbage. And Jewish people typically, they're not chained down by their land. They don't love the nation they inhabit because, first of all, they have Israel, which is actually their home nation. And secondly, they're like an international group that goes from nation to nation periodically when they get kicked out of every single one they've been a part of. And so they
109
don't
countries.
have the blood and soil or blood and chained down to the land like I do, particularly, or like a lot of Americans here do. My grandparents have fought in almost every single war. Actually, I know they have. And now we're being ran by Larry Fink, who, came here. I don't even know when his parents came here, but it's just, it just bugs the crap out of me. And like I said, we're just being brainwashed. We're being totally, our country is being totally, they're just chopping our balls off and crushing them.
Absolutely. And I think the only way really to solve all this is just being unapologetically honest. I mean, and that's what you see happening all across the internet. You see so many white people, especially white young men like us, who are waking up to this disaster that they left us with. And it's going to be a war, man. It's going to be an all out war, whether it's just a spiritual war or it gets physical. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And we all know it's coming.
Yeah.
But the question is, how do we stop it? How do we actually stop it from getting worse? And how do we take back our country? How do we get our numbers back up as white people? A lot of people don't know this, but we're in decline. Our race is in decline. So how do we get our culture back? How do we get our population back and our country back? What is the answer to that?
Well, this is my plan, okay? This is my grand plan. I want to work locally until I can get politicians elected in my area. And how politics works is you get a snowball rolling, okay? And you get influence. People are socially acceptable with your different ideas. Maybe you kind of have to hide some of your ideas in order to be at the beginning. And you get a few donors that can donate to your circle of network and your politicians that you're getting elected. And then you start to change policy. And then you work up from, city to county to state to then federal. Okay. And you grow your donor base as that grows as well. And the policies that I want to elicit will be able to work within the means of the American system, I believe, without breaking too many rules, I believe. And it can put us in a really good direction. I think, one, we need to tear down the separation of church and state. That's got to get torn down. Even if you're not Christian, I know there's a lot of people that are in the movement that are not Christian. Look, at least the Christian church is one more check on accountability, right? It's one more check on corruption from these guys. Whereas the nonprofits, the atheist nonprofits that are supposed to be solving the homeless issue and solving all these problems, they're just not doing it. Okay. Whereas if the church had the opportunity and the money that they were given, they would be able to turn a lot of people away from drugs and alcohol and other things at a very high rate. And yes, there would still be corruption, of course. There's always bad churches somewhere, but it would be another step in the right direction. I trust them more than I trust the atheist nonprofits. 26-year-olds just getting out of college that don't even know a thing about drug abuse, and yet they're giving meth pipes to meth heads because they think that that's the best way to do it. So there's that. Then the other aspect of what I would want to do is I would make it to where I would make it easier for banks to give loans to newly wedded married couples, but only if they were straight married couples. Because, I mean, really, essentially, you have to abolish the gay marriage thing. Because once you did that, you'd say, okay, look, married couples that are newly married and they're able to have kids, we're going to make it really accessible for them to take out loans or even give them a loan from the state or from somewhere that's backed by the state. And then they would be able to buy a home and a car, and then the mother would be able to stay home with the kids, and the father would be able to go to work, and they'd buy their home and their car. If they had one kid, it would pay off the loan. If they had 4 kids, it would pay off the entire loan. Obviously, this is not a new idea. Hitler did this during Nazi Germany. Turned out pretty good for his population. They boosted their population in no time. And the most important thing about this is not just boosting the population, because that's important, but it's also that the mothers will be able to stay home with the kids, which is essential in raising a good population of people. That will take
Absolutely.
away the schooling brainwashing right there. That'll just take it away pretty much. So those two things are the two things that I would definitely do right off the gate. And then what I would do is I would start setting up not unions. I don't want to use the word a union, but I would break up our economy into being subsectors of like our nation is a body, right? We need our heart, our lungs, and our stomach. Right now, it's like the brain is Wall Street and everything else is just like little tentacles that are super weak and get chopped off at any time.
Right.
No meaning or no nothing. What we need to do is figure out a way to make those equal in some way. So that way, just gaining capital isn't the number one thing that we can do at a certain level. Of course, gaining capital past that point, if you split them up and made them equal here and then they all fought to keep each other in line. Because look, we can't have Wall Street taking advantage of the agriculture area. That's how we feed ourselves. Like, look at what's going on with factory farming. And this is a left-leaning topic, by the way. It's disgusting. They're putting
Yeah.
pigs and cows in little tiny cages. They're feeding them poison. They're fattening them up, and then they're killing them. It's the worst existence. It's ungodly. If you're a Christian, how would you say that that's okay? Well, we got to feed people. We fed people before factory farming for thousands of years. Oh, you mean you can't live in a giant city with a bunch of buildings everywhere all packed in on top of each other? You mean you can't do that? Okay, well, then you can't do that. You guys need to all disperse, move away, and have your own little farms and stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with that. Having a homestead, having
Yeah.
farms, letting the people work. Well, we need the Mexicans to pick our fruit. Pick our own fruit. That's what I say. So we'd have to set up systems that would push us away from the cities and stop incentivizing us to go to the cities. That's one. because it's unnatural to be in the city. It's not natural to be like that. And these are the things I would do. This would clean up our food. This would boost our population, stop immigration, at least not entirely, but at least from all the areas that are not English speaking, at least. I mean, people will say like, well, no, don't bring in, don't, race is a hard one because there's going to be a big uprising against that. But I still believe that America is a white nation. Do I believe it's a England nation? No, I don't believe that it should just be English people. I'm English descended. I think Scottish and Irish and all the European descended people, that's already open and diverse enough. We don't need every single part of the world in our nation. I mean, that's just crazy. It doesn't work. It never has worked in all of human history. It's not going to work now. We know that. It's clear as day. I mean, go to Chicago. You'll find it out right away in 2 seconds. It's simple.
Well, that's the thing. Everybody likes to be around their people. They feel more comfortable being around their people. It's their culture. And once you start mixing all these cultures together, you're just asking for a shitstorm. And it was an experiment that we have done. We tested the experiment out. It obviously didn't work. And now we need to do something about it. I mean,
Well, I think
it's just getting out of hand.
I think the experiment did work, but not in the way that it's being portrayed now. When they said the experiment, when the founding fathers, they spoke of, things that were not exclusive to one group of people, and they were purposely doing that. I believe that. But they also said that having the slaves here was akin to having a wolf. This is what Thomas Jefferson said, a wolf by the ears. We can either do the moral thing and let the wolf go, but then the wolf's going to turn around and eat us and kill us and take our sovereignty away, or we can just kill the wolf, do the immoral thing, kill the wolf, and at least we'll be alive, right? That's what they looked at black people as. That's what Thomas Jefferson looked at people. Now, this is not saying I hate black people or the founding fathers hated black people. No, but it just goes, look at what's happening in South Africa right now. There's whites in South Africa and the blacks don't want them there. Why is that? Because yes, there's a diversity between like Irish, English, Dutch, Germanic people, Italians. Yes, that's a good diversity. That's a good diversity of people. And that diversity might work in one place, which they have in Europe for thousands of years. But when you take somebody from Norway or from England and you put them in South Africa, like that's insane. It's not gonna work, right? And so, I mean, also too, there's an argument that like, well, they weren't meant to be there because they're white and they're taking over a nation. But a nation is only a place that you can conquer. And then they say that about us too. They say, oh well, you took over the Native Americans, so why don't you go back to Europe? It's like, wait, hold on. The Native Americans also came here from Asia. So should they go back to Asia? It's like, no.
Right,
A
exactly.
land is a place that you inhabit, you conquer, and you can defend. That makes it your land. We can defend our land. That makes it our land. We're allowing invaders to invade our country. We got to stop it. Sorry, I'm like going on a rant because I had a long talk today.
No, I absolutely agree with everything you're saying.
Mhm.
And like I said, it's going to be a long battle. And I don't see anything really changing until the next 10 to 15 years. You have people out there like Nick Fuentes, who I really enjoy. I love everything he's doing, but he's not old enough to be president. But you see a lot of these Gen Zers who are really, they're grasping what we're saying and they're starting to understand that they've been lied to. And I'm thankful for that because they're young. And at that age, I had no clue what the fuck was going on.
Well, I
And
got a
so they're
problem with
starting
Nick
to come.
Fuentes, actually, Nick. I actually
Really,
have
what's your
one
problem
issue with Nick Fuentes, one hang up. And this makes me wonder about what his motivations are, too, as well, is that he seems to say that he's racial, right? He knows the differences between races, and he knows, and he kind of, he talks about it often, and he's very explicit about his anger with other groups, and he's okay with being open about that. But the one hang up I have on him is that when he's asked and he's in positions where he's on a podcast with black viewers and stuff like that, he says, "Oh, these people, like the Patriot Front and Thomas Russo, they like worship race." And like, look, we're not going to be able to kick all these colored people out of our nation. We just can't do it. And to me,
Yeah.
that's like, I don't know, that's like a weakness that I don't want to hear. I think we can. I don't think we have to kick them out. I think maybe we can make their nations good and they'll want to go back home, like we're doing in
Right.
Israel right now, and pay these people to go back home. Yes, you're right. We did something immoral. We did something wrong. We took them from their nation of Africa. We brought them here. That's our fault. That's our bad. And are we going to
Right.
keep paying for the mistakes? No, we're not. Starting now, we should pay for them to go back to their nations and pay for their nations to be in good standing, like we do, like I said, in Israel. So there's ways out of this. There's clear intellectual ways to think about these things. But Nick loves getting involved in all the pop culture stuff and saying the N word and like talking about geopolitics, which I love. I'm a big fan of him. But the one thing he lacks, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, is that aspect. He's very like, oh, come on, that's just a shot. That's just a total a farce. Not going to happen. We can't kick all the people out. Like, you're worshiping
Hey,
race. Like, come on, race is not everything. He says
he's
these
being a
things.
little soft. He's being a little soft on that
Yeah,
subject when it comes to that. And
yeah,
I agree with you. I mean, I actually I've said this before. I either said we can bring segregation back if we have to, or we can send them back to Africa and we can pay for it. And I'm
yeah.
not trying to be mean, but it's just like at what point, like, how do we fix this situation when every year more and more black people and white people are dying violently by other black people? I mean, what
Mhm.
do we do? Do we just sit here and go, "Oh, it's okay. They're people, they'll deal with it." No. I mean, come on. We got to do something
Malcolm
about it.
X said the same thing, you guys.
He
This is not
did.
because we're racist and white. We were raised to see black people as equals and everything else. And I do believe black people are equals. I believe that they're saved by Christ just like me. I don't think they're
Mhm.
any less than me, maybe in certain ways. Just like I'm not going to go try to be in the NBA. Because
Right.
why? I don't know. Maybe because I'm not 6'7". That's why, right?
They dominate sports. They dominate sports.
Yeah. So, I just don't want them to, it's just a simple fact. God saves everybody. That doesn't mean you have to move everybody in your house. And you say, what does a
Mhm.
house have to do with a nation? Rah, rah, rah. It's like, dude, every nation is your tribe. Okay. Every nation for all of history has been groups of ethnic groups. And yes, there'd be some diversity within those groups, like in the instance of Rome, but look how that turned out, right? They all fought each other in the end and it went to a burning nothing. And now they're burnt to the ground
Mhm.
and it's just a total disaster. They failed. So there has to be some type of homogeneity. And I think we can achieve that. With this next generation of people, I think we can achieve that. But we have to start, like I just said right now, 5 ideas that would be a good things to maybe try to get instilled, put in that's legal for us to do without throwing a civil war. Cause that's the other group of people that are on the Nick Fuentes crowd. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
Paul, there's no political solution. Let's just talk crap online and give up. That's all we can do.
Yeah, they're
We're
pushing
sold
for it.
out.
And that's the thing. I mean, I think that is actually it could be a result is civil war, but it's not something I want. It's not something a lot of us want. And we're trying to find the solution before that happens because I think, dude, I honestly think we're nearing it. I really do. And you see, like I said, the Ariana thing where she got stabbed in the neck brutally. She didn't even talk to him, didn't look at him, got stabbed in the neck. Now they're saying he's crazy and all this bullshit. Well, it's like I look at that and I go, that was my sister. That was my mother. That was my niece. And it pisses me off and it pisses a lot of other white people off too. And
Oh,
so,
yeah.
we see all this stuff happen, like I said before with the Carmela Anthony, and there's a lot of underreported stuff that the media just doesn't cover. There was a lady in Georgia at the border of Florida and Georgia who beat a black lady who beat the shit out of a white toddler at a daycare. No report. No report from CNN, ABC, nothing. Just absolutely beat him. And there's more like that happening all over the country, and they're not talking about it.
Yeah, and it's
So, I
not
mean,
just the media and the left, you guys. It's the right. The Republican Party is for gay marriage. The Republican Party
yep.
is now for abortion, okay? You need to get this through your head. We have to take back the Republican Party first, okay? That needs to be our first step. Some people say, no, it's impossible. They're all sold out. Screw it all. What are we going to do? There's no action in that. There's no plan. Let's come up with a clear-cut plan. First thing, we have to take our party back, the Republican Party, the right-wing party. We've got to take it back. We have to. We have to strip it from its ideas of being open to gay marriage and abortion. That's insane. Second thing we need to do is start getting people racially aware, right? It's not racist. We're not racist by saying these things. We're racially observant. There's a big difference in that.
Well, that's Marxist. That's the Marxist textbook is when you disagree with them, when the left disagrees with you, call them a racist, call them a Nazi, tell them that they're basically just bigots, and that's how you shut them down. That's
Mhm.
literally in the textbook.
Yeah.
So that's
Hey,
what
Nick,
they're doing to us. And so, the left and the right, everyone thinks it's the left and the right. And like you were just saying earlier, we need to take back the Republican Party. But I think as we stand right now, it's just good versus evil. It's not left versus right anymore. It's good versus evil. We need to ban abortion. We need to stop gay marriage. And we need to stop all this degeneracy that's happening in our country. And, you see it from the left, but now you're seeing it from the right. And so in my opinion, these people, these politicians don't represent us. They're not our friends, no matter what side they're on. And it's really terrible where our country's going. And yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. that we have these people in office who we voted in office and they're still not voting in our best interest. Why do we have Muslims as politicians? Why do we have these people who don't even share our values who are voting on behalf of us? I mean, that's another thing for me. I know it might be a radical idea or an extreme idea, but this is a Christian country. We should have Christian politicians who are voting on policies. And,
Yeah,
we need to get lobbying. That needs to go. The lobbying needs to be taken care of because you got all these politicians who are being paid by these Israel lobbyists to vote a certain way and to just speak a certain way, about Israel. And
yeah,
it's just corruption, man. It's all corruption.
yeah. Yeah, it is interesting. I have people that are of the right, and we get two kind of major breeds of the far right. You have the right wing people, which are like Republicans, bit MAGA people, which are like, oh no, gays. If they voted for Trump, I think they're cool. Who cares about what they do in their bedroom? That's none of my business. And then it's like, yeah, and then they end up being your son's teacher. How do you feel about that? Yeah. So, but
Exactly.
then there's the far right, which I agree with more. But then there's two far rights. There's one that's like pro-Christian, where they're like, no,
Hmm.
race doesn't matter, but we need to designate ourselves as a Christian nation, that we only speak English, and we need to force people to assimilate. We need to stop immigration pretty much, but still allow some immigration. And we don't have to be from white nations. Who cares about like race? It doesn't even matter. But we need to make sure that our nation is Christian. Doesn't matter their race, as long as they're Christian. And then you
Right.
have
Yeah.
the altar side where it's like, no, I don't, they can be pagan, Satanist, I don't care, but as long as they're white. And it's like either of those are both, in my opinion, not good stances. I think the best
Terrible.
stance is to be for our moral compass, which is Christianity, and our ethnic makeup, which is European. That's what we should be focused on. Both of those things. Both of those are important, and they are the backbone, both of them, of Western society. We should lean on each of them.
Now, I agree with that, but what is your stance on the government being so involved in marriage?
Well, the reason what it started off of why the government's involved in marriage is because actually the same idea that I was talking about earlier about where marriages we should give them loans, that's what a marriage is. So when you are married to someone, you get cheaper insurance,
Mhm.
you get tax benefits, and you get a few other things that you can do when you're married. But now, like I said, marriage can be between you and your toaster. So they've watered it down and the benefits really aren't that great.
I mean, I
So
think there's
I think the
also
government should be involved in marriage when it comes to those like aspects of benefiting us, but I don't think that, well, the reason why there's paperwork and stuff like that need to be done because it's a something that happens, and then when your grandkids look you up, it will be in their database that the government actually maintains. So in those ways, I think it's pretty acceptable too. When you go back into your research and you find out, oh, where you come from, it's usually marriage certificates is where you find all the information. So
and I actually have probably a different stance than most people on divorce. But I feel like divorce in this country, the way that men are treated in family court is just terrible.
yeah,
They're very prejudiced against fathers, and a lot of the times the women get the kids. And I am literally someone who had to go through divorce as a child, and as someone who had a mother, and I love my mom. I don't really talk to her anymore, but it's very difficult because she has mental illness, she has schizophrenia. I grew up in a household where she used to beat me and mentally abuse me. And so my dad for years, he was in the army after he got out. He tried getting custody of me through the state of New Hampshire.
mhm,
And even though she had been to the insane asylum many times and there was documents that she would beat me and I had to go live with my grandparents and other people, they wouldn't give him custody. It took him like so long. It took him 5 or 6 years after spending thousands of dollars to get custody of me because they're so prejudiced
yeah.
against giving the children to the father. And that's something I'm very passionate about, and I wanna make sure that's fixed too.
Yeah. Did you see my podcast with Young? Oh, check it
I
out.
don't
You're
think
gonna
so.
love it. You're gonna really love it. It's about this guy who got in a divorce. His dad is like the governor of Utah and or for a city in Utah, a mayor, and he got in a divorce with a girl. She went they At first it was all good. They're Mormons, right? They were believing in God and stuff, praying, going to church. They had three kids, I think, and she went to a therapist. Well, that therapist, she didn't like, so they went to another therapist and then another therapist. Finally, she find a therapist that she liked. But this
Yeah,
therapist was feeding her a bunch of crap. And
like they do.
yep. And then they got a divorce. Well, then when they got a divorce, she falsely accused him of like stalking and all these things, and the cops actually arrested him. Then they used those arrests in court to pretty much rip his kids away from her, and pretty much essentially he was falsely accused, had to go to jail. That was used against him in court, and now he doesn't have access to any of his kids. He cannot see his kids at all, not one bit. And it's
I
like
mean,
he told
that's
me the story.
devastating.
You could watch the podcast, but I mean, it's just horrendous. The one-sidedness on that is just terrible. They are stripping the kids from the father. And in court, they use it as a legal stance. They go, well, men have a physical dominance over women, and men have typically held the financial power in society. And so that means we need to side with the mother when it comes to the kids. And that has
Yeah, I
led for
mean,
the pendulum to swing so far to the women's side that now women are violently using marriage to attack their husbands. And it's
absolutely.
breaking up the family union. It's not natural because in all of history, men have had to learn how to have the power that they have, right? We've had to go through thousands of years of other men joining up and killing men that were bad to women and do that for generations and hanging people in town square, trying to take those people out of the gene pool. And now they're giving that power back to women, or they're giving it to women. Women are going to have to go through a whole process of learning how to manage that power. And I don't think they ever will, because the Bible says, we were created this way for a reason. We were created. The reason
Absolutely.
why men is the head of the household is for a reason. It's not for
Mhm.
nothing. Have men done bad things to women in the past? Of course they have. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be in that position, which is head of the household. We should. And the courts are taking that away.
I think what's so devastating about it is we have all the data for, fatherless children and what happens to them. They're most likely to end up in prison, most likely to end up dead before the age of 25. And so you have all this happening and they're getting indoctrinated. They don't have that masculine father figure in their home. And it's almost as if there is a system in place that doesn't want the nuclear family to exist. And I wonder where that's coming from, Chance.
Yeah. Right? It's terrible. I know. It's all a system that they're doing. They're trying to, I mean, we hear it all the time. It's like, "Well, the Chinese are trying to take over our nation." No, you got a bigger thing that's here already taken over our nation, and it was right
Yeah,
under your nose, and you didn't even notice it. It's like
it's the
strong
Chinese.
men create good times create weak men, and blah, 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 so on and so forth.
Right, right, right.
We are in the bad times right now, right?
We
We
are.
can't afford a house. Healthcare's super expensive. Even if you make good money, it's expensive. You're hard pressed to not be poisoned on a regular basis through microplastics and everything else in our environment that's trying to kill us all the time. You've got institutions like the pharmaceutical industries that are poisoning our parents, that are poisoning us and killing them. And then they go getting on fentanyl in the streets and die. These are the things that capitalism is doing to us. And you go, well, capitalism is great and it works as long as your society is moral and Christian. Well, guess what? The people that are exploiting us in this capitalistic system are not Christian. Do
Right.
you get that? They think Jesus is burning in hell.
In his
Do
own
you get
feces.
that?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm
I
ramped
mean,
up. I'm sorry.
no, I love it, man. I love the passion because that's what we need right now. Is we need people who are passionate about this issue. And it's time to wake the world up. It's time to wake everyone up. And it's funny. I mean, why were we lied to about World War II and the actual history behind it? What was the first thing that Hitler did when he got into office? He burned all the trans books and he took away the interest rates. And there was a reason for this, is because there was degeneracy going. It was literally the modern Sodom and Gomorrah. And there was
Usury is a
degeneracy.
sin.
Absolutely.
And they
Absolutely.
say, well, but hold on. Usury states clearly that it's the unrighteous amount of interest. Okay, you want to draw that line, so you say, oh, well, what's another sin? Let's see. Being gay is a sin. It says it in the Bible. It's an abomination if you lie with another man. But what he meant was that, you can do you can kiss and do other things with
Yeah.
men. You just can't go
Well,
all
they
the
try to say it
way.
was pedophilia. They try to say it was
Yeah,
pedophilia.
yeah, you're sick and stupid. When he says when the Bible is clear about a sin, stay away from it entirely. Just stay
Yeah.
away from it. And they say, oh, well, in the Old Testament, they actually mentioned that, they mentioned usury and loans as long as they were paid an equal amount. The Bible in the Old Testament mentioned a bunch of things like don't, hurt your slaves. So I guess what? Now we're allowed to have slaves? By that
It's
logic,
context.
no, we're
People don't
not. You have
realize.
to use balance. The Bible teaches balance. And right now, it's not balanced. Usury, loans, school loans, and everything else is tanking all of our generation.
Mhm.
23% of Generation Z is missing. It's just gone. It's not, we don't exist. We're literally being killed, not from an invasion through our shores, but inside, internally. And if you don't know that because you're so up the butt of every authoritative figure in your life because you are a slave yourself, then you're going to be deported along with everybody else when people like me and like Nick get into power. So keep
Absolutely.
exposing yourself.
And that's the thing. You tell these people, you're like, this is literally a genocide that's happening. They're like, oh, you're crazy. This is not a genocide. What's really a genocide is the 6 million Jews that died. And it's like, this is a different type of genocide. You don't really understand what is going on right now. This is a spiritual war. They're killing us from the inside. It's not just physical. This is a mental war. They're literally just brain rotting our generation. It's insane.
They're trying to erase our genetics. They're trying to erase our inheritance. The wealthy people do not want us to build wealth and have an inheritance. The 1%, they do not. And, we talk about World War II, and I know that's a hard pressed idea. And I've been kind of, trying to appeal to the masses and trying to like talk to the left a little bit here and there and
You
kind
can
of
only do that so
avoid.
long, Chance.
Right, exactly. I've been trying to do it, because I know that we gotta convince people, not just yell at them and then push them away, right? I understand that. But you need to, if you're listening to this and you're not like on our line of thinking, which maybe there's one of you out there that's actually at this point in the podcast where you stayed along this long, look into World War II. Look up the Australian science community, the data that they did on the so-called death camps. Look at
Mhm.
that data because it doesn't make sense. They found no burials, no ash, no bones, no nothing. Not what was the what there was there was two big death camps. One was Auschwitz and the other one was, which
Auschwitz,
one was
yep.
the other one? What was it?
I forgot I just know Auschwitz. I don't know the other one.
Starts with a Z. I can't remember the name of it. Starts with a Z. Look, I mean, you could look up all of them, but look up that one particularly. That one is incredibly egregious because the things they said that they did there and the mass burials that were supposed to occur there, they're just not there. They're just not there. So,
Yeah.
and then you hear about testimony of people in World War II or people that were in the concentration camps, like Jews, coming out and saying, no, actually, it wasn't a bad time at all. And then you also have people coming out and saying, hey, why was there not snow? Because when we were there was like a bunch of snow. And then you find out that on the Russian side, remember, the Bolsheviks were Jewish people, Russians,
Right.
okay? They were obviously lying about World War II. They
Yeah.
go in and they come in, they dress up a bunch of Jews that were been starving for a long time that they captured or that they already saved a long time or a few months ago. They brought them back, they put all these gowns on them, and they took pictures of them looking all sad, like as if they're like getting beat and stuff. And then they took pictures of the piles of shoes and the piles of clothes. I know we've all watched Battle over Europa, so we know why the pile of clothes and the pile of shoes were there too, right? They were fighting off typhoid, which is lice. If you ever had lice, you know you got to get rid of all your clothes.
Most
At
of
least
them
that's what
actually
they did.
died from that, and that's documented.
Yes. And then they say, oh, what about Zyklon B and the gases? They didn't gas anybody. There was showers.
Showers.
And guess what? Here's the big thing. Look up the concentration camps that were in America. They did the
Yeah.
exact same thing. They had giant showers with Zyklon B water, not liquid, that would flow over the top of them to kill lice because of typhoid.
Right.
That's when we were putting Japanese people in these concentration camps.
Yep.
We were doing the exact same thing. And then they say, well, no, you're denying that Jewish people died? No. Of course,
No.
some of them died. I just don't think 6 million of them died. And the numbers seem to be checking that out. And then you look at, well, how did the few amount die, right? Which we don't know the numbers, maybe 500,000, maybe even a million. You go, how did they die? Well, they died along Germans who were also starving, right? Between typhoid, sickness, and starvation, because even the Germans were dying of starvation at that time. What do you think the Germans are gonna sit there and give their last piece of bread to a person in a concentration camp when they themselves are dying in the middle of a war? I mean,
Exactly.
think about that. And every point in history, when I majored in history, and every professor would say the same thing, the victors write history. And they say it about Genghis Khan, and they say it about Alexander the Great, and they say it about Napoleon, but they never say it about the US in World War II. Never.
Yeah.
Everything that the US says, everything that the Axis powers and that Russia claims, the Bolshevik, communist, atheist Jews said is 100% correct. Come on.
Yeah. And there's a reason behind it, man. They want us to be soft on the Jews. They want us to, why do so many people feel like we have this allegiance to the Jews? I guess it goes back to the Bible. where they think we have this allegiance to Israel. When was Israel actually created, Chance? No, that's
19
what
I think it's 1948, right?
I think so, yeah. So I mean,
1948.
that's that. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that people don't even know. I mean, this is just regular history. People don't know that Israel hasn't been around that long. They haven't been
Yeah.
even around for 100 years.
I talked to a
And the
guy
Jewish
today.
people,
And they're like, "Oh, stupid Jewish conspiracy, stupid, stupid, stupid. Look at
yeah.
Muslims have killed us for generations. They bombed us, blah blah blah.
Well, they are
Jews
bad
have
too, but
never done that." And I said, "No, they have. They
yeah,
actually shot. They actually shot at a U.S. vessel that had an
that's right.
American flag, and all the people on the vessel today are alive to tell you that no, the Jewish government of Israel is corrupt." And they tried to fake a false flag attack on a U.S. ship right outside of Egypt at the time. And there's no way they knew it wasn't the USS Liberty, which shows it on the side, huge and huge writing. And they had an American flag flying too. All the people on the ship knew that the Israelis knew that it was American, and they still shot us down. And then what does our media tell us? What does your president tell you? Oh, it was a mistake.
But I mean, these Jews that are running Israel right now, they're not even the original Jews. They're not even original Jew descendants.
Yeah.
They did the DNA testing and they're from Europe.
Yeah, we'll get into
So I
that
mean,
really quick before we get into that because that's a good point. Jews that claim to be Jews but are not and lie says that in the Bible, okay? But the USS Liberty, do you know? The older generations, they always tell us like you kids today are so gullible and stupid and naive and weak. Do you know what would happen if USS Liberty were to occur today? Do you know what would happen? We would be livid on the right and the left. We would be marching every day of the year. I'm not going to threaten anything or say anything that we do anything more than that. But I think it'd be safe to say we would all be up in arms, okay? The left and the right. And yet your generation, the tough and big bad ones, right? What is it? Boomers. Wait, let's see. When was USS Liberty? Do you know?
I think that, well, I think it's the boomer generation. I don't know the year, but we can blame a lot of stuff on the boomer generation.
1967. So the boomer generation was the ones in power. Gen X was being born. So that happened during your generation. You guys fell for it because you're stupid. Because all you listen to is the big media streams like newspapers or Fox News or CNN. You're morons. You're the ones who are brainwashed. You're the ones who are retarded. You're the ones who listen to Fox News, who's paid by BlackRock, who owns everything, and you say that's a conspiracy, even though we know it to be factually true. You're the morons. All right, Nick, we were talking about
Absolutely.
fake Jews, right? It was
No,
the ones
absolutely.
about
Yeah.
Israel. Yeah, Netanyahu. His name is not Netanyahu, guys. It's not. He has white skin, blue eyes, and white hair.
Wait, you're telling me they changed their names?
Not just him, but a lot of key politicians in Israel. Yeah, a lot of key politicians all over Israel all changed their names because they have Eastern Russian names.
That's right. That's
And
right.
they're
And,
direct descendants from the people of the Bolshevik Revolution, right? The people who fought Hitler that saved the day, right? The
which they don't
communists,
talk about.
atheists, the ones who General Patton said, we chose the wrong side. General Patton said that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I mean, you look at people like George Rockwell, who was a veteran who was over there, and he comes back and he's just like, yeah, everything you know about the war over there, we fought on the wrong side. And, I'm not saying he was perfect either. He had some pretty radical ideas, but you have people who know exactly what happened and they wrote books about it. They came out, they were in interviews about it. And for some reason, we're not, why are we not taught about the Bolshevik War? That's something I'm really interested in.
60 million Christians died, and yet we're hung up on the 6 million Jews that supposedly died.
Right, right. Well, then they like to say the Bolsheviks, they weren't Jewish, and there's no way of knowing that they were.
They were 87% Jewish.
Yeah, they were atheist Jews.
Trotsky, Jewish. They're like, well, but
Absolutely.
not 100% chance.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Not
that's their
100% of the Nazis were German. There were Jews
Yeah,
in the German army too. So maybe we should
absolutely.
blame the Jews also for killing
The
Jews,
Jews.
I guess.
Yeah, I guess you could take that stance too, couldn't you? I
Yeah.
just learned that. I actually didn't know there were Jews. There were Nazi Jews.
Yeah, 150,000. The leader of the SS was a quarter Jew. Didn't learn that either. Didn't learn that the first child brothel was in 1933. Nope, before 1933. You didn't learn that in Berlin. The first transgender person was Magnus Hirschfeld, a Jewish psychologist. He didn't do the surgery. He was the therapist that convince the beta German male to become female. That's who he was.
Yep. The
These
trans
people are
libraries.
sick. They're sick, and they do things like they have porn sites, and not just any porn sites. They've got porn sites like Blacked, right, where it's black guys with white women. I mean, it's horrible. They're
Yeah.
in your face and they're smacking you around and laughing and spitting
Yeah.
on you, and you sit there and you defend them against people like me who call them out for what they do. I mean, it's
Yeah.
literally disgusting. You've betrayed your own people because you're so stupid and weak.
It's a direct attack on the white race, for sure. And they're doing this on purpose, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't want to talk about it. They know it's happening, but they're scared to say something. They're scared to look racist. They're scared to look like a bigot, you know? But
Yeah,
it's
they're
like,
cowards.
they're
I got
cowards.
kicked out of the Republican Party for saying this stuff. I got kicked out. They expelled me. And you know what's crazy is I could have been a communist ideologue. I could have been a gay, transgender, black. Who cares? And they would have shook my hand and actually put me in a higher position than than I was. Because they'd be like, "Oh, well, look, a black conservative." But yet, because I say, "Hey, maybe there are differences of thousands of years of being separated on different continents," maybe that has made a difference in the groups of population. Don't say that. Don't say it. Hey, maybe women shouldn't be voting right now because, women traditionally, they don't have what it takes to be protectors of the tribe. It's just a fact, right? They just were able to wear pants in the 90s. They can't even drive. What makes you think we should let them vote? Joking around, I was saying that, by the way. I don't actually believe that entirely. And yet, they get rid of me for joking about something like that.
I mean, that's another, I guess extreme idea to people, but it's like if women can't get drafted, if they bring the draft back and women can't get drafted, why should they why should they be able to vote on these policies? And most women vote against their own best interest. Most of them are voting liberal, and I would actually argue that white liberal women are just as bad as the issue of black violence in America. I would literally argue that, or maybe even worse.
Well, you know what's interesting to me? Because they say ethnicity, ethnicity is just, skin deep and it's all about your culture, right? But here's where this is where you can definitively see that that's not true. Within politics, you have everyone voting Democrat besides white males predominantly. White males make up the biggest portion of Republican voters. What do Republicans vote for? They want to expand our military complex, which I disagree with, or at least not expanding it, but just spending it on what they spend it on. I like to still maybe expand it, but just spend it differently. And then the Democrats will try to expand our welfare state. So what they get, their benefits, the government paying them. Whites are the only population in America that benefit the system, meaning we take littler amount of welfare than we give, okay? The black community,
That's right.
Hispanic community, every single community, besides the educated Asians after the second generation, they also benefit society too. So I got to make that disclaimer, okay? Then you have, okay, who's voting Democrat? Well, then they say, well, no, it's skin deep. It's about your culture. Hold on. Let's look at blacks. They've been here for hundreds of years now, and yet they still vote Democrat. Why? Because they do not regard themselves as American. The only people that vote Republican are the people that are proud of this nation who regard themselves as Americans. Now, I'm not saying no women do that, and I'm not saying no colored people do that. There are those groups of people that do that, and I commend them. I love them. Nothing I love better than seeing somebody who's typically you don't expect to be patriotic, but then they are, and they are thankful to be here. Wonderful. We love you. But the ones that are not, the reason they're voting Democrat is because they hate men, they hate white men, they hate America, and they don't want our country to do good. They want to burn it to the ground and build a new version of it. I mean, we learned
Right.
that over and over and over in all of these different debates that we have with them. They are traitors, and yet we're letting them stay. That has never been in the history of mankind in every society when a group of people literally admit that they hate the king or hate the castle, we kick them out. We get a boat or we get a cart and kick them out. Let them go.
Yeah.
Let them go. Pay for them to go somewhere else. That's like when liberals talk to me and like they're like, "Oh, I hate this nation." Da, 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 da. I say, "Hey, where do you want to go?" And they say, "Oh, I'd like to go here." Okay, great. I'll buy your ticket. I'll pay for your whatever expenses you have. Let's see if you'll do it. I'll pay for everything. Not one of them ever took me up on it, obviously, because they're like, "I have roots here, man." Da, 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 da. But still, yeah.
And I mean, Charlie Kirk used to, rest in peace, but he used to argue this point is that They feed us this bullshit that diversity is a strength, and it's really not. Unity is a strength. And you see these countries like Poland, which have this amazing, amazing border, and they don't let all these immigrants in like these other countries are doing. They
Mhm.
haven't had one terrorist attack
No
at all.
crime.
No crime. Absolutely beautiful country. And they love their nation. They absolutely love their nation. So we look at countries like that, white predominantly countries that are doing well, and for some reason we can't learn anything from it. So I mean,
It's
I'm
kinda funny too that you say that. It's like the boomer generation, they're like, "What do you want us to go back to the next?" No, I want our nation to go back how you had it when you were a kid. You see how nice that was? You see how you got to buy a house for 40 grand? You worked one job, your wife got to stay home with the 3 kids, you guys could afford a home at 25 years old, you know?
right.
That's what I wanna go back to. You're mad at me for that? You complain
Yeah, well
about
they've
everything that's going on in the country today.
Yeah, and
That's
I
no
mean, they've
good.
completely destroyed the idea of having a nuclear family. Like you just
Yeah.
said, back in the day, it was the man, he had one job, he could support his 4 kids and his wife who stayed at home, he could buy 2 cars, buy a house, and have all his bills paid and not have any worries in the world. Now you have a man who doesn't even have a family and has 2 jobs and is barely getting by paying his rent. How the fuck does that make any sense? You know?
Yeah.
And I mean, something needs to be done. Something absolutely needs to be done in this country.
Well, I kind of have a rough plan. I still figuring it out as I go, but I think what we need to do is we need to start doing what we're doing, getting on podcasts, spreading the memes, build up a meme army of young kids that want to go in and just punch it and just constantly get hardcore memes going. That's what motivates
Definitely.
everybody. Get the snowball rolling. Start going to people that have money, business owners, people that are ultra wealthy. You'll be surprised how many people actually agree with what you're saying, but they just don't think it could politically work. But if they give you money, you have enough people to vote for you, and you start taking over these political organizations, like the small ones, like the PACs. You start getting that snowball rolling. You start running in. Maybe you run a few candidates that are not as radical as you yet. You run a few candidates that they believe what you believe, but they're going to be, they're going to tone it back just a little bit. And you're able to get them in the door. You just keep pushing, keep punching, keep punching. And then eventually, before you know it, you're in positions of power where you're making decisions that we're going to actually be able to instill to change our nation. That is not just like you say, well, that's kind of naive to think. Well, maybe it is, but guess what? There's no other option, right? There's no
Right.
other option. I mean, otherwise, let's all grab a bunch of guns and go to and get a civil war going. I mean, if that's the option, right? So the only other
Yeah.
option is to politically have victory. We're in political war. You got to win politically. That's how we do it. Nick
That's
also
right. I
said
mean, if
against that too. He's like, "Oh, come on, don't red pill everyone around you. Like, just this is just what I want you to know." And da da da. Which I kind of agree with him on that a little bit, but also too, it's kind of cowardice to say like no plan, no nothing. All of this motivation, all this movement, all this money, all this stuff. I mean, he's changing the party literally, and no plan, no nothing. Just let the boomers keep it, and let them just keep driving us down into the dirt. That's what your plan is. Come
Well,
on.
Nick Fuentes, he has kind of a two personality deal going. When he's on his podcast, he's by himself. It seems like he's fully himself. When he actually gets on a podcast with another podcaster, he kind of dials it back a little bit. He's a lot more articulate and stuff, which you could
Yeah.
expect while being on a podcast. But like you said, he gets a little soft in some of those issues.
Yeah, and he attacked. I get him. Like I'm attacking him right now. I guess you could say I'm not really attacking him. I'm a small content creator. I mean, he's probably not, no one's ever going to see this, but I'm criticizing him. I don't like to criticize people though that are even in the movement. They just maybe think a little differently. That's okay. I don't like I'll focus criticizing other people, not people that are in my movement. But him particularly, he criticizes people that are in the movement. That's like what he spends all of his time doing, like Tucker and Candace. And then on the Candace situation, I sent in the giant group chat that I'm a part of, America First group chat. I said, look, Nick won, Candace won. It's 1-1 right now because this. He was like, no, no, Candace is crazy. She needs to be in a psych ward. She came up with those text messages though, and that's not nothing.
Okay, and I agree, but she is kind of saying some wild shit. I had a dream about Charlie, and like you can't really use that as evidence, Candace. You got to
Yeah,
dial
but
it back a little
okay, if I told you I was having a dream, you'd probably be like, "Well, all right, bro." But
bit.
there is something to be said, and this is actually gets to a bigger point. That's actually really important. I'm glad you brought that up. Is that women do have an intuitive ability, right? They do more than men. I'll be the first to say there's a difference between men and women, right? Physically, definitely. But mentally, there's a difference between men and women have a better intuitive thought pattern than men do. It's a
They
fact.
do. They
For
do.
sure, because they have to see, they've got to determine, oh crap, is a lion going to come into our camp and eat all my children? And they got to have this intuitive ability. I don't really like to throw away stuff like when someone says, "I had a dream."
Completely.
I don't like to
Completely,
yeah,
yeah.
I don't like to completely rule it out. I don't even think especially coming from her, a woman, I don't I'll give that, "Okay, what was in your dream?" But, we have to respect women. We can't just demand that they do what we say and fall in line. We've gotta be the men and the leaders that they want, that they need. That's how we take our nation
Right.
back. That's how we get the women to come on our side, not by saying they suck and pretty much kick rocks and no, we've gotta convince them to be on our side. And we have to do that by being the men that they need. That's exactly what the younger generation needs to know, because it's very easy to fall into the nick or the and here I go with not talking about other people that are in the movement. Golly, Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate's
Oh,
always just
yeah.
like, but man, that guy has like 4 wives or something like that. I disagree with
Yeah,
that.
he's pretty hard on women. But
Yeah,
I know exactly what you're saying. We can't blame everything on them. There's a lot of incels out there now. There's a lot of men who just aren't leaders,
yeah,
and they're just as much to blame, you know? And maybe not completely on them. Maybe, like we talked about earlier, the system and how the system has brainwashed them and treated them and made them believe, different types of things. So, I mean, I fully agree with you. We can't throw it out I think it was just bad timing. Maybe it was just bad timing the way she did it. But of course, Nick's gonna get hard on her about that. But I appreciate that she released those texts because that's big. That's
yeah.
really, really big.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, it does look like Charlie was really starting to turn his opinion on Israel. I mean, Give the text did say they're not going to donate anymore. But he was like, hey, I'm not going to let him bully me. Like, I'm just going to be honest. And people were really pushing him towards the end of his life. They were pushing him to be like, why are we funding this genocide? It's okay to, if we were funding them for something else for the betterment of just their country and they weren't killing people, but they have these kids in concentration camps and they're starving them to death and they've literally flattened Gaza. It's like, okay, if the shooter goes into a school, do you just blow up the whole school? It's like,
Yeah, it's like my neighbor stole my sister. Where's my bazooka?
yeah, exactly, exactly. So, there's a lot of questioning going on with what they're doing with our money. And it's crazy, these people in Israel, they'll try to justify it too. They'll be like, oh, well, the Hamas was holding him hostage. They were holding him hostage in every single building. It's just insane.
And I can't wait to see what happens. I'm actually in the process of unraveling a giant network between the Israeli government, real estate companies, nonprofits that are purchasing homes for groups of people in the US. And these groups of people are media influencers in America first. So like Nick Fuentes and all these people, right, that are like not Nick Fuentes, but I'm saying like all the people under him, have all these like
Yeah,
accounts like mine that are very like they're saying the N word and they're saying like bitch and just like very radical. And like
right,
I
right,
don't
right.
it feels fake and off putting to me and I can kind of see it, but they're getting followers. Well, you find out that they're actually Jewish and their husband is and their whole family is and they're being paid by Israel. And the way they're getting paid is because nobody wants to buy the land that's in the West Bank. The West Bank is a piece of land that the Israeli government has pretty much taken against international law, by the way. And so they have these homes, but they can't sell them. No one wants to buy in the West Bank. Why? Because they're in the middle of a war. So what they do is they take collateral, or what do you call that? Collateral on these
Collateral.
homes, and they purchase other homes in other areas. And it's legitimized too, by the way, by the government, because how can you take collateral on a home that's like in the middle of a war? Like, how do you know it's going to be worth anything? Well, because the Israeli government's backing you and saying, hey, we're going to take care of this spot, okay? And that's what's backing their loans. And then they get the loans in the US, and then they're giving these homes to particular influencers. And I'm going to actually do a whole podcast about this. I hope tomorrow, maybe not tomorrow. The people that are doing all the research, that are helping me with the research, get all the details and the facts and everything together. We're still working on getting that done. So maybe it'll be tomorrow or Tuesday. So make sure to tune in on that one. That's
Absolutely.
going to be interesting. There's a lot of them online that you would not imagine. You're like, wow, wow. I can't. I mean, my mind is blown right now. And I go, man, why are they doing that? Why would they pay influencers to hate on Jews and blacks and everything like that and women? Why would they do that? Why would they want to be far right wing? What's going on? Well, the reason why is because they're trying to make anti-Semitism a problem, so big of a problem
Right,
that the U.S. government, that the average moderate will vote to crack down on anti-Semitism,
right.
not even know that
Yeah.
they're selling out our freedom of speech, and
Well, I
that's
mean,
their
that's what
whole
they
plot.
you see, that's what they do is they see something that goes against them, and then they take that same thing and they weaponize it against you.
Yep.
So,
They
like you
let
said, what
the
they're doing,
they let
they're
the
amping it up.
perpetrator Yep. They
Yeah.
let the perpetrator perpetrate, and then they overcorrect, and they let them do it,
Mhm.
just like in January 6th. And this is not what I'm saying, this is what Charlie Kirk said. He said, "Was there a stand down order? Because Israel is as big as New Jersey, and you can't go 5 feet without running into a 19-year-old with an AK-47. So was there a stand down order? I find it very hard to believe that they were killing and pillaging for 6 hours straight with no response. I mean, I almost think that that's impossible, and it's not conspiratorial to ask. Those were his words.
Well, I mean, Israel's been caught bombing themselves. You know that, right?
I didn't know
They've been
about that.
caught. Yeah, look it up. There's videos of them shooting a bomb in the air and it comes back down and it bombs themselves. So I mean, they're self-destructive on purpose, and like you said, it's to amp it up. It's to amp it up so they can actually put in these policies
Yeah.
where we can't have free speech online. And you see Netanyahu, what is he trying to do right now? He got on, he said, "We need to put a stop to all this anti-Semitism online. We're talking to TikTok, we're going to talk to Elon Musk on X." So they're already starting to make their move. And it actually makes sense that you brought that up. They're getting all these influencers to amp it up so they can do that. And so we need to
Yep.
be aware of that.
That's what they're doing. And it's terrible and sickening, and we've gotta get everybody woken up to what their moves are and how they move. I said some guy to me today, he starts, and this kid's like, he's younger, like early 20s. He starts cracking up telling when I said that, like, he was saying, like, "There's no people think Mossad killed Charlie. Ha, 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 ha." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "Well, why does it get ruled out?" And they go, "We know the killer, blah, blah." I'm like, "Yeah, well, hold on, Jared." Oh my god, I just said his name. I'm an idiot. Okay, I'm gonna have to cut that out.
It's all good.
But I said I pretty much said, why does that cut out?" He's like, "The only reason they would have done that is because he was, like, going against, Israel and such, but he wasn't, so they wouldn't have done it." And I'm like, "That's the only reason, really? You think they don't have the same brain I have or you have, and where you go, 'Hey, I bet if I kill this particular person, even though they're on my side, it will make me look better, and it's a double whammy.'
Oh yeah.
I know that, and I'm dumb, right? So you think an entire intelligence agency of the top order that runs the world isn't doing things like this? You don't think they're doing
Uh-huh.
false attacks? We know that there was 274 federal agents at the January 6th insurrection. And
Really,
then
there
they
was
go,
that
and I go,
many.
and they say, so what?
There was that many.
Yes. And then I say, so they're 100% on purpose trying to aggravate us to get us to instill stricter laws on ourselves. They
Uh-huh.
are definitely doing that. And then they go, well, we don't know what those 274 officers were doing there. Oh my God. I mean, they believe every single thing that the narrative says, and it just disgusts me.
Yeah, it's crazy that the Democrats, these liberals, they talk about January 6th like it was 9/11. It's just absolutely crazy. It was the worst thing in history. It's like, and these people were falsely accused and jailed for like a year and a half. And, it's just insane. That whole thing was insane. There was like one or two people that actually like broke the window to the Capitol. And then they are actually allowed to go in there. They opened the door, they went in there, and then they're like, "Oh man, this is insurrection. This is absolutely devastating." And it's like these people just like to amp everything up and make it seem like it's something it's not.
It's terrible, man. We gotta wake everybody up, and like I said, biggest thing, first step. It's gonna be the online war, the media war, meme
It's
pages. We've
happening.
got to create more meme pages than they can censor. That's where it starts. That's where the battle is.
Oh, it's
Sounds
happening
crazy and
right now.
stupid and kind of naive, but no, it's 100% true. We've got to have more meme pages than them.
Oh, it's happening right now. You see it happening. You can feel it in the air, dude. People are pissed off, man.
Yeah.
Hopefully things turn around as we just got to keep going. We got to keep posting every day. We got to keep opening people's eyes
Uh-huh.
to the truth. And, I get death threats already. I don't even have a big page. I have like 160 followers. I get death threats every day, mostly from black people, but I get it from liberal men too, who are like,
Wow.
I'm going to come find you and kill you because you said you like Nick Fuentes and you're a Nazi. And, I just start telling these people, like, yep, I'm a Nazi because they've called us a Nazi for the last 10 years, ever since we voted for Trump.
I
And
do
it's
the
been
same
on.
thing.
So I just say, yeah, you're right. I am. And it pisses them off even more. And that's kind of what I want to do, to be honest.
Yeah, I do
So,
the exact same thing. I said, "Yeah, I am. I am a nut. So what? What are you gonna do about it?" And then they send me a
yeah.
picture of my house and my address, and I'm like, "Ah, crap."
Oh my god.
Yeah,
These people are absolutely insane, man.
but whatever. I got old I got old Mussolini right here.
There
I
you
call
go.
my firearm Mussolini because it's made in Italy.
Hell
It's a
yeah,
Chiappa
dude.
Rhino. You know what a Chiappa Rhino is?
I don't think so. I never heard of that.
It's a revolver. It's like a modern cowboy gun. So it's like a cowboy gun, but it's modern.
Nice, like a
Here,
modern
I'll
revolver.
show you it, and then I'll just clip this little part out. And then you can do your reaction to it. Shower, man. I have this thing on me every single place I go. This thing is on me like it's a part of my body. I never leave
Yeah.
anywhere without it. In my car, everywhere I go.
You
And
gotta you gotta nowadays.
yeah,
The
you literally
political
can't.
violence is crazy, and, the left will be like, "There's more political violence on the right." I mean, no, absolutely not. All these people who are shooting up schools and shooting political figures, whether they're trans or left, it's like
How
most
can
of
they
them are
even
not.
say that? How can they even say that there's more political violence on the right? It's so
Well, they
nauseating.
just
It's like
make shit up. They just make shit up now, dude. There's no evidence of whatever they say. They just say it now,
you're like,
you know?
Alaska has the highest homicide rate in the. God, you guys are stupid.
Dealing with a wall, man.
You're just gay, pretty much. But we gotta convince them to be on our side, you know? We
That's gonna be
do.
hard, man.
I know it's gonna be hard, but we do. We gotta convince him. I know. Also, Nick Fuentes again bringing him up. He's also against that too. He's like, "Don't make friends. I'm not friends with Muslims or women or nothing." It's like I'm not saying make friends with Muslims or Democrats, but I think women. I really think this liberal women.
We need them on our side bad. We need them on our
We
side
can
bad.
convince them. I'm telling you. I have a lot of liberal women and men too that hit me up, gay wads and stuff like this. They hit me up and they're like, "You idiot Nazi, blah 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 blah." A lot of them end up following me by the time I argue with them and talk with them for like days on end. Because I start explaining to them that because they go, "Trump's an idiot. How can you agree with him?" And I go, "Well, yeah, you're right in some ways." I just say, "Yeah, you're right." And they go, "Wait,
Yeah.
what?" And they're like, "You're a magatard." And I'm like, I'm not MAGA." And they're like, "What? What do you mean?"
Yeah, they get
And then I explain to
confused.
them
They're
that
like, "Huh?"
yeah, and then they're like, "You're a capitalist rat." And I'm like, "No, I'm not. I actually agree with socialism, and there's a lot of good things socialism has, actually."
Yep.
And
I
they
do the
go,
same thing, yeah.
What?" I go, "Yeah. Actually, I'd love to give loans to each family to boost our population, da da da." And they're just like,
Right.
"Well, would it be just going to white people?" And I'm like, "Yeah." But I tell them like, "But here's my idea. Instead of like kicking all the blacks out, I don't want to do that. I don't want to hurt no blacks. I don't want to freaking hurt nobody. I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
I'm a good guy. But also, why would you be opposed to not kicking anybody out, first of all, but helping Africa become a nice nation? Why would you be
Mhm.
opposed to that? That sounds unchristian. And I bet if it was a nice nation, a lot of black people would want to go there. Because I don't know if you noticed, but black people like other black people,
Yeah,
right?
obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, they
So
wanna
if
be
you made
around their own
Africa
kind.
nice and it was booming and it was just like America, I think they'd want to go there. And
I don't
that's
have any
what we
problem with
should be
that.
doing.
For tax dollars, I mean, I would love to spend money on Africa to help them. I
Yeah.
really
Or
would. I
Mexico
would
too.
not mind at
Mexico
all.
as well.
Absolutely.
Get the
Absolutely.
cartels out, give the people their guns back, stop this madness. Canada, kick rocks. We're taking you back. We're taking you over.
Canada needs to be part of America. They hate that. Well, some of them do. Actually, I have a lot of Canadian friends, and they don't mind the idea of that, man.
Oh,
They
now
really
they're
don't.
totally up for it because they see what's going on. I mean, they're totally up for it.
But dude, all
They're
the
getting
Indians
completely
over there now,
swamped.
have you seen the videos of all the Indians over there in the streets? It's absolutely insane. They're in the fucking lakes taking shits in the lakes.
We have to have a good leader come in, get power, take back our nation, put these rules in place, take Canada, give Mexico their guns back, and also take Greenland as well, and
Oh
make
yeah, it'll happen.
Africa great again. Let me say that in one little form. We need a good leader who's going to instill good laws to protect the family, to protect the native-born population of America. Take Canada for our own. Take over Canada. Go to Mexico, kick the cartels out, give them their guns back. Take Greenland, and most importantly, make Africa great again. There you go.
Absolutely.
That was dramatic. That was a little gay and
Yeah.
dramatic.
Yeah, it's good for clips.
Yep.
But yeah, man, I
Well,
I mean, I
Nick, man, I had a
absolutely
great
agree.
time with you. So you want to give your Instagram handle real quick so people can follow you?
Yeah, so on my Instagram, it's at Nick the Veteran, Nick the Veteran. I also have a Twitter page where it's at Nick90, at Nick Lind 90, NickLind 90. And I post on there frequently. I'm mostly on Instagram. I'm trying to get that Instagram account up. But yeah, just follow me and I'll be more vocal about everything that's going on, and hopefully in the future we can have another podcast.
Oh, that'd be awesome. We'll get some good clips from this too, I'm sure. And I
Absolutely.
wanted to say thank you for your service first and foremost.
No
Really
problem.
appreciate that. You signed the dotted line, unlike a lot of people do. My brother just shipped out, or he's shipping out tomorrow. We just had a party
Awesome.
for him here, and there's men of action and there's men of talking crap, and I'm very happy to have good guys like you in our nation that actually go out and do things, and they're men of action. So appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. We had a wonderful time. Really enjoyed it. I definitely want to get you back on. A lot of people I have on as guests, they try to blabber over me because they have like something to say. You let me talk. I appreciate that.
Oh, absolutely. I'm very considerate of other people, man. And I'm thankful you had me on here, and it was a good time, dude. I like having this conversation. We need more conversations like this in this country.
Yep, got to do it. Well, all right, Nick. I'm actually. You want to go live tonight on Instagram, or are you done after this?
Yeah, we can go live.
Oh, sweet. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's go live after this. I was supposed to go live on Friday. My account was shut down, so I owe the people a live. Okay, this is the Paint the
Cool.
Town Red podcast. We hope you guys have a wonderful week, and we will see you tomorrow.